Boys and girls, it's time for us to read our story for today, Little Red Riding Hood. That's the title, Little Red Riding Hood. Look at her. I wonder why they call her Little Red Riding Hood. Can you think of a good reason? If you think because she's wearing a little red cape with a hood on it, I think that's a pretty good guess. Let's see, what do you think is going to happen in this story? Maybe you already know this story. Okay, let's find out. Little Red Riding Hood, retold by Bonnie Dobkin. That means she retold it. It's not that she wrote it. Okay? And illustrated by Subhendu Karmakar. And so he drew the pictures and she wrote the words. Okay, here we go. Once upon a time, a little girl and her mother and brother lived in a small cottage by the edge of the forest. Her favorite piece of clothing was a long red cape with a soft, silky hood. She wore it so often that everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day, Little Red Riding Hood was bored and looking for something to do. You could sweep the floor, said her mother, who was busy painting the fence. No, said Little Red Riding Hood. I don't think I want to do that. You could clean the yard, said her brother, who was busy chopping wood. No, said Little Red Riding Hood, and that wasn't what I want to do either. Was that very nice? No, her mother gave her ideas of things that she really needed to do, and that would help her mother and brother who were actually working, and she's just lazing around. But that would not be kind to not help someone who needs help doing something. Then you could visit your grandmother, said her mother. You're old enough to go by yourself, and you haven't seen her for weeks. Ooh, that's exactly what I want to do, said Little Red Riding Hood. Grandmother lives on the other side of the woods, so it will be an adventure. So Little Red Riding Hood's mother packed her a little basket of goodies, and she told her, the woods are dangerous. So after you leave, please go straight to Grandma's and don't be late. So she didn't want her to go anyplace else in the woods. Go straight to Grandma's house. That's it. And don't stop. Just go all the way there. She won't listen, said her brother. Yes, I will, said Little Red Riding Hood. Of course she will, said her mother. And dear, something else before you go. Only talk to those you know. Boys and girls, this is very important. Listen to your parents' directions. So she didn't want her to get lost in the woods, and she didn't want her to talk to strangers. So she said, go straight there. Don't go anyplace else in the woods, and don't talk to strangers. The two rules. That would fall under be safe, wouldn't it? Be safe. Don't talk to strangers. Be safe. Go straight there. So those are the little rules under the big rule, be safe. She won't listen, said her brother. Yes, I will, said Little Red Riding Hood. Of course she would. And off she went into the forest. Goodbye, dear. Give your grandmother a hug for me. Yes, Mother, said Little Red Riding Hood, and she headed straight out the door, down the path, and into the forest. There was so much to see in the woods. Uh-oh. Was she supposed to stop and see other things or go straight to Grandma's? First, she saw a spider web. And then a dark shape stepped out from behind one of the trees. It was a wolf. He was smiling and charming. Why, hello, little girl, said the wolf. Isn't this a lovely day? Ooh, does she know the wolf? He's a stranger. So first, she stopped to look at things and go off the path, not going straight to Grandma's. And now she's talking to strangers. Little Red Riding Hood remembered what her mother had said. Something else before you go, only talk to those you know. But Little Red Riding Hood did not obey her mother. Hello, Mr. Wolf, said Little Red Riding Hood. Yes, it is a lovely day. And the wolf said, you seem to be such a delicious. I mean, delightful child, said the wolf. The wolf's smile grew even bigger and bigger. What might your name be? Everyone calls me Little Red Riding Hood, said the girl. Oh, a splendid name, said the wolf. And where might you be headed, Little Red, may I call you that? You may, said Little Red Riding Hood. I am bringing my grandmother a basket of treats. She lives on the other side of the forest. How kind of you, said the wolf. In fact, wouldn't your grandmother love a lovely bouquet of wildflowers as well? Little Red Riding Hood remembered what her mother had said. Go straight to Grandma's house and don't stop and do anything else. But Little Red Riding Hood thought, yeah, you know what? She would love that. And she stopped to pick her grandmother some flowers. The moment Little Red Riding Hood disappeared, the wolf dashed down the path toward Grandmother's cottage. He tapped lightly on the door. Grandmother, he said in his best little girl's voice. It's me! It's me! Little Red Riding Hood! Little Red? Oh, really? Oh, how wonderful, said Grandma. Grandmother flung open the door. Wait, she said. You're not Little Red Riding Hood. Sadly, no, said the wolf. By which I mean goodbye. And he swallowed the grandmother up in one gulp. Gulp. And now, said the wolf, patting his stomach, I shall wait for dessert. Who's going to be his dessert? Little Red Riding Hood. She should have listened to her mother. She'd be safely at Grandma's by now if she had listened. Sometime later, Little Red Riding Hood came out of the woods. She was dirty and rumpled, and there were burrs in her hair. And it was much harder to find the path again, harder than she thought it would be. She was surprised to find her grandmother's door wide open. She stepped inside. Grandmother, are you home? Yes, dear, said a scratchy voice from the bedroom. But I'm in bed. I'm afraid I have a nasty cold. Kershoo. Little Red Riding Hood followed the voice into the bedroom. The curtains were closed, and it was very dark. Grandmother was wearing a floppy nightcap. Is that the grandmother? Who is it? Little Red Riding Hood moved toward the bed. Grandmother's eyes looked very odd. Why, grandmother, she said. Well, what big eyes you have. The better to see you with, my dear. Come closer so I can give you a big hug. Little Red Riding Hood took another step and saw two odd triangles poking out from under the nightcap. And grandmother, well, what big ears you have. The better to hear you with, my dear. Can you come a bit closer still? Just then, the blanket slipped away from the grandmother's face, revealing 2 rows of very sharp teeth. But the grandmother, said Red Riding Hood, what big teeth you have! The better to eat you with, my dear, said the wolf, leaping out from the grandmother's bed. Little Red screamed. She ran out of the bedroom. She ran to the main room and into the kitchen. Slamming doors behind her, she clambered into a cabinet and yanked the door shut. Oh, why didn't I listen to my mother, she thought. If I hadn't stopped in the woods, I wouldn't have met the wolf. And if I hadn't talked to the wolf, I wouldn't have left the path. And if I hadn't left the path, I would have been at grandmother's by now. None of this would have happened. In the kitchen, she could hear the wolf calling for her. Just then, something crashed. A voice yelled, dishes smashed. And then everything was quiet. Her brother and mother had come for her. And they took a big stick and they beat that old wolf and knocked him out cold. And then the mother and the brother and Little Red Riding Hood sat and ate the treats at Grandma's table. Hey, what shape are these treats? She's got apples and grapes in there. Are they spheres or ovoids, do you think?